Hello, everybody. Hello. And I am so pleased because you saw those 4 groups. So there was like emails, hey, we'll set it up for you. Hey, we'll set it up for you. Hey, we'll set it up for you. And I go, you know, if you guys could collaborate, that would just like be so sweet. And they said, yeah, okay. And then it was ×4. So that was just like really, really good. Because a lot of places, actually, the Agile, discussion groups are all like competitive. This is our meetup, So it was really nice to come here and just find a group of people who go, yeah, we're supposed to collaborate. It's fine. It's free. Come. It's good. It's all like that. Good, good. So there's 2 parts to this evening. The first is I don't give a talk. I don't like to give the talks. I don't like to do question and answer. But in this moment, I happen to have something special on my mind I want to talk to you about. Therefore, I'm going to do the talk part. And that'll take however long it takes. I may go really fast because I'm used to speaking in other countries. And here being in England, I'm just going to rely on the fact that you guys can understand fast spoken English. So I'm just going to like blast. And your experience, so I'm just going to like power through just a zillion, whatever it is. There's nothing terribly difficult in anything I'm going to say, so that's not going to be a problem. And I'll get to that in however long it takes. And then after that, I'm going to do what I always like to do, which is answering questions with stories. So I used to go around and say, I'll just answer questions. Yeah, it's the lazy speaker's way of not having to prepare anything. And then what I found out was it was more fun if I told a story that would address the question. If I don't have a story, I can't answer the question. So there's no opinions in a vacuum here. If I don't have a story, it doesn't get an answer. If I have an answer, do that in the form of a story. And I saw this, and I saw that, and these people did that. And that turns out to be not only more interesting for you guys, but actually more informative. Because you see the context, you see the, like the trajectory of what's happening, and you form your own little patterns in your head, and it turns out to be better. So that's going to be the second half. So you think about what your questions are going to be in that second half. So the first part, what month are we in? About 2 years ago, I was going around as a kind of reaction against the way Agile has become heavily complicated over the last decade, was going around and saying, if you go back to the center of Agile, it really looks like this. It looks like this, right? This is the center. Like it's got, the daily stand-ups. Well, that's an add-on, right? That's okay. That's nice, And Fibonacci numbers have got nothing to do with Agile whatsoever. It's a nice idea, but it's got nothing to do with it. Nor do T-shirt sizes, right? Nor do, specifically, whatever you're thinking about. It's an add-on. It's not the center of the center. When we wrote the manifesto, that's not what we were thinking about. At the time we wrote, oddly, at the time we wrote the manifesto, Scrum was pretty much unknown. It was like, I don't know what that is. XP was the big player. And people said in 2001, 2002, 2003, they were saying, oh, Agile is just a rebranding of XP. And we had to say, no, it's not. Agile is an umbrella term where we all felt that we could collaborate with our differing views and do something in unison and have respect for our differences. And so what's in common is, the 4 values of the manifesto, which some of you may actually have read. And the thing that's different is this person likes, TDD and extreme programming and stuff. And these people, actually, Scrum is the only one that really liked self-organization. I don't fuss about the self-organization stuff. That's Ken Schwaber's baby, right? He likes that. He threw all the project managers out the window. I didn't. I used to give talks about what's the role of a project manager on an Agile project. I didn't bother with that stuff. And I was doing Crystal, my stuff, and Jim Highsmith was doing adaptive. The guys in England and Holland particularly were doing DSDM, which turns out to be completely awesome. Any DSDM practitioners in here? Yeah, we could have taken those 9 principles and just dropped it into the manifesto straight on. When I went back and read about DSDM and I saw those, I go, why did we go to all the trouble to try to write our own? They're just sitting right there in front of us. So the current state, the 2016 version of Agile, looks a lot like DSDM. So they just didn't do the marketing job right. But if any of you want to go research that thing, there's like spot on dead center in the kind of stuff that I'll be talking about here. Like that. So we wanted to have, and then from Australia, feature-driven development. I just met somebody the other day who had grown up on feature-driven development. And the pragmatic programmers, right, and some other people in the room. So we wanted something that was going to be a big enough container to contain all of us, and pull in the same direction and allow individual differences. Now what happened is since Ken Schwaber started the Scrum Alliance and handing out those certified Scrum Master certificates, right? Then everybody wants to have a certified Scrum Master certificate. Now there's 100,000 or more certified Scrum Masters. It may be 200,000 by now, and there's 150 or 200 certified Scrum trainers. And so Scrum and the Scrum language has become the dominant language, not the extreme programming language. But the thing is this, I went to Cleveland, and a colleague I trust and like and respect and been doing this forever, and he has a 90-page book that he inflicts on all of his clients with just the vocabulary of Agile, and he takes them all into a darkened room with bright lights on them, and then like flagellates them with a 90-page vocabulary book, with pigs and chickens and backlogs and impediments and Fibonacci numbers and stand-ups and scrum of scrums and whatever all else. And I go, you should not need 90 pages. It was not the idea to have 90 pages. We had 4 values, right? It's not difficult, right? Individuals and interactions, working software, customer collaboration, responding to change. That's all you need to know. Where'd the 90 pages come from? And I just got my certified Scrum trainer back again. So in 2009 I had it, I let it go. I went to get it back again. Now there's 118 learning objectives that I had to prove that my course delivered 118 learning objectives in 2 days. It's like 1 every 5 minutes. I don't even know how to do that. But I proved to them that I did it. So I can do it. Yes, I can do it. Yes, no, I can do it. You're safe. Come to I can do it. I'll be teaching a certified Scrum Master class in Rome day after tomorrow. So yes, I can do it. Oh, it's safe. You will pass the exam. You will pass the exam. Don't worry about it. You get your little SCM at the bottom, CSM. So yeah, and I went like, what happened here? And so I was challenged by a friend of mine in Australia. He said, Alistair, you have to have, here's what he said. You have to have a name, you have to have a diagram, you have to have a certification scheme. Those are table stakes these days. So I did that, right? Up until I became CST, now I can't have 2 certification schemes. So, but leave that to the side. That sent me down the path of asking, what is the radical simplification of Agile that takes you back to its essence and its center and so on? And I'm going to tell you a little bit the story of that and why it looks how it looks and what you do with it and all the rest of it. But I have to tell you, there's in the US, on YouTube, there's a insurance company called Geico. Anybody heard the Geico thing? Yeah. And they're just the cutest, they have the best ad agency ever. They just have this gecko that runs around and does silly things. And so I go up on YouTube, and they always have the ads, and it says skip ad 4, 3, 2, right? And you hover over the skip ad button where you go, boom, right, like that. That's how. Except some of the ads are so good these days that I just watch them, and then I want to forward them on Facebook, but I can't get a URL for them, so it's kind of tough. But anyway, so this has got nothing to do with Agile, right? So this is what you're in for the next hour. Just so like if you want to leave, now you wish you had the beer before I started. So I'm going to look at something, and the Geico, and it's just the word Geico, and there's a family, and they come in, they sit around the dining room table, and I'm waiting for the little banner to come up, right? I'm going to pop that sucker. And then there's no banner, and there's no little button. And I'm looking, and I notice a little subtext under the word Geico. It says, you can't skip this ad. It's already over. It's a 4-second ad. The reason for bringing that up is you've already been inflicted with this methodology. You can't skip this methodology. It's already over. It has 4 words. It's all I've got to offer you is 4 words. I'm sorry, people. It's very boring. Here's the story. Collaborate, deliver, reflect. That's the surprising one. People really don't know what that means. I get asked that all the time by French people. They go, what is that? How do you say that in French? And I say, oh, collaborate, collaborate. Deliver is livrer. Reflect is, and they go, look, well, what's reflect? Réfléchir. Right? It's reflect. But people don't do that, which is why I separated it out. And improve. That's it. That's the whole story. Yeah, but how does that work at scale? What's the scaled version of that? Well, you collaborate. You guys are smart, so you know where this is all going. But I'm going to inflict it on you anyway. And then you deliver. Got it? And then you reflect. And then you improve. And that's it at scale. So we'll talk about that. But that's it. That's all there is, these 4 words. But my point is, That so captures, and these are not values, right? The Agile manifesto is the values. It's a value center. Agile's not a methodology, it's an attitude, right? You guys all have heard that sort of stuff. Now, these are commands, right? I'm not being nice about this. Collaborate, you ass, right? Deliver that shit, right? Reflect for a moment, and then improve, right? So these are, and I've been testing it out, and it works really pretty well, right? You know, your topics are going to be how do you enhance collaboration, how do you enhance delivery, do stop for a moment, reflect on things, and that's becoming an interesting topic all by itself. And then you go through the experimentation process. And in fact, there's two loops there because you collaborate, you reflect on the collaboration, and then you improve the collaboration. And you deliver, and you reflect on the delivery, and you improve the delivery, right? So this kind of like you collaborate to deliver, and you reflect to improve, and then you've got those two triangles. So there's a couple of different loops in there, which is kind of fun. And it'll get more fun when you expand it out. And I was talking to somebody today who was explaining me the Buddhist model. Any Buddhist type experts in here? And it was like the Eightfold Path and the 5 forms of suffering and the 3 thingies of this and the 8s of that and the 6s of those and the 2 of these. And I counted, I said, just what would be the, having this on my mind, I said, what's like the smallest subset? She said, you have to have this 5 and this 4 and this 3. That's 12. So I have to have 12 things to get going. She says, yeah. I go, I think Buddhism's ready for a radical simplification. And you just got to fold it up so it's not too much. She says, oh, you mean Atura Chow. Yeah, you need to read that guy because he did the folding back up again. I go, yeah, that's it. That's what we're talking about, right? So that's what I'm doing with Agile. It's not that life got any less complicated, but you don't have to think about 90 pages of stuff at one time when you're doing it. 1 at a time. It's not that hard. All right, so we're going to go through the story now. And to do the story, now I just check because I don't know you guys. Some of you are experienced Agilists, some not. How many people know about Shuhari? We got any Oh man, tough. How many people do not know about Shuhari already? You poor souls. Okay, good. Yeah, so some of the same hands went up again. That's all right. That's cool. That's fine. It's safe. It's safe. I've added Kokoro to Shuhari. Any Japanese people in here? I'm really lucky. I have not yet had any Japanese people in any of my lectures, which is good, because I'm going to speak some Japanese stuff, and I mess with Japanese tradition. So I'm just waiting for the time that I have to give this talk in Japan and see what they do to me. So we're going to go through this. These are the 4 levels of mastery. The first 3 are levels of learning and performance. The first is a level of teaching. And it's got these, I'm going to illustrate this with all this diving stuff and end up with this kind of curve at the bottom. That's where we're going to. So the first thing, and the thing is this comes from Aikido. Aikido is like 100 years old, but the 3 stages come from Japanese theater, like 1600, so 350 years old, something like that, old stuff. And the first level is shu. Shu means copy. You go to your dojo and your sensei makes a move, you don't ask any questions, you just, and Tai Chi and all of those things, right? You just try to do what the master's doing. There's no discussion. Copy, 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 copy. Well, it turns out that any kind of skills acquisition goes through this stage, where I remember going to a session and there was a woman who was going to teach us how to write a memo. So it was our Agile roundtable group, and she says, I don't know anything about Agile, but I'd like to teach you guys how to write a good action request memo. And we go, I don't know how to do that. Yeah, okay. And she gave us this little template and had little 5 sentences, and you did this, and I still have it written in my notebook. It's like, I don't ever want to throw this away. She walked us through, and we wrote the best action request memo we had ever written in our lives. We were all looking at us, God, I can't wait to send that off. That's going to be so good. And then we got all like saving it up. She goes, wait, you know you don't have to follow that template exactly. And we're all going, la, 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 don't tell me, don't tell me, don't tell me, don't tell me. I got a memo, I got a memo, I got a memo. I'm going to write this kind of memo all the rest of my life. Don't touch it. No, 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 you don't have to use this all. I didn't hear it, I didn't hear it. I got my memo, I got my memo, I got my 5 sentences. Right? Shu. You don't mess with it. You don't touch it. You just do it. You copy it. Right? So you're a beginning UX designer and you say, how do I do this? And someone shows you a something technique. Or you're a beginning programmer and somebody shows you something about TDD or a responsibility-driven design or whatever. You're a new project manager. Doesn't matter what it is. The first thing you do is you say, oh, we're doing this Agile thing. How do you do estimation? Oh, we use T-shirt sizes. Oh, really? Then you go some other place and they go, we don't do T-shirt sizes. We don't like that. We do it in hours. Not hours. Don't tell me you estimate. You never estimate in hours, okay? So shu level techniques, they're narrow, they're formulaic, and they get you started. Now playing with the rhyme on shoe, the first time that I talked about shu-ha-ri, and somebody says, well, that's cute, I like that, because it's clear that not one shoe can fit all people, ha 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 ha. And then somebody else goes, yeah, all you agile, gurus are arguing about whose shoe is better than whose, right? And the one I like is that people become comfortable with their shoe level technique, and they make a little nest in the shoebox. Ha 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 ha. So the thing is, people come. Sorry about that. I had my beer. You didn't have your beer. That's your problem. Hi, camera. I don't care. This is for free, right? You get what you pay for, and you get a beer on top of it, right? So don't complain to me. So the shoebox is kind of cool because people get trapped in the shoebox, and so like people like me, we have to kick them out of the shoebox. Learn it, that's cool. Learn it, that's cool. That's cool, it's cool. Yeah, now move on. No, I like it. I have my memo. Whatever. So I don't have any movies of this guy diving, and it's really interesting to me that we teach kids to dive this way, right? Everybody's been taught to dive this way, and everybody teaches their kids to dive this way. You bend over and you fall forward. And the kid always, I've done this many, many times, they always open up before they hit right? They go, whoop, they get scared and they go, ah! Land on the stomach, and you go, no, bend over. But I've seen many Olympics, and they do not have a diving competition in the Olympics with this form of dive, right? So you learn it and you forget about it. It's done. So I don't have any movies about it. It's not interesting. What's interesting is now the next stage, which is ha means to collect techniques. So you have your technique, and I remember this in one of the early Agile conferences. People were doing extreme programming, but they were bumping into walls because they weren't co-located, or the team size was too big, or they couldn't get access to the customer all the time, or whatever it was. You're just in a place where you need another technique, right? If you're doing a bow on your shoes or your shoelaces or something, and you're in a hurry and you pull hard, one of the shoelaces snap, and now you've got this, and you don't have any time. You all know what you do, right? It's the one-eared half bow, we called it, right? So there's a thing you say, oh, half bow, okay, thanks for teaching me the half bow. So you collect different ways of tying shoelaces, or if you're baking bread, you learn different ways of bread recipes, or if you're doing estimations, you learn about gummy bears and story points and ideal days and work hours and t-shirt sizes, binary numbers and Fibonacci numbers, and all of the things that you could do, like all of those. Oh, my favorite, by the way, we used to argue about estimation every month at the round table, like for years. We put a moratorium on it for 3 months, and the moment the 3 months were up, it was back first thing. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter, because people get all tangled up about the first sprint. The first sprint is 2 or 3 weeks. It doesn't matter. What's going to matter is after like half a dozen cycles, so we're only inside of a couple of months, you've established a form of trust and conversation with your sponsors. You say this, you deliver this. You say this, you deliver this. It didn't matter if you were speaking hours or t-shirt sizes, Fibonacci, or whatever. You say this, you deliver this. So Ron Jeffries, tongue in cheek, came up with a great estimation scale, which was bicycle, stick, border collie, and cloud. Right? So we're going to give you about three sticks, 2 bicycles, and a border collie in this iteration, right? And why not? Why not? You say this, you deliver that. So that conversation, people will understand, no matter what you say, you produce about that, right? So the first sprint doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. Get like 3-6 sprints in, you will have a track record, and they will know what it means to talk to you about something, whatever that happens to be, right? All those things like that. So that's ha. And so I do have a video on this one, and let's just see my wonderful Mac. Those of you guys know I love my Mac. One of my favorite things ever. So this is me going bungee jumping, and the point of this is in New Zealand, and I'll cut the sound on that one. We don't need it. And so this is the place where A.J. Hackett, where bungee jumping was invented. So this has been going on for 20 years or 30 years or something like that. And you can see it's pretty high. It's 40 meters high, which is about 130 feet, depending on how you like to look at that. And they attach this thing to your feet. So you can do the baby diving technique if you want, or you could do a backflip, or you could do anything you want. So you have a range of techniques available. You're not going to die theoretically because you've got an attachment on you. And so I asked them, can I do a backflip? And they said no. And I said, can I go back dive? They said no. Can I do a front flip? No. You can go forward. I said, okay, fine. So what are my ranges? That's my re-level tattoo, by the way, which I had just had. We'll get to re in a split second. And I just chose that. I got mad because they blacked out the camera. And then I'm going to let this play just for a second because it's kind of fun. Because how do you get back up? You're hanging upside down there. And the way they've been doing for 20 plus years is they just have a boat. They have a little raft strapped, tied to the river, or because the river's moving, and they hold up a pole. And you have to climb down the pole, upside down, to get into the boat. So I just let this run for a second because it's just kind of, and then I'm bored, so I have to do sit-ups. You have to do something while you're up in the air waiting for the boat to come around. So you see me trying to make positive, like a good executive, making double use of the time. Reading books in the shower, reading my Kindle in the shower. And here we go, and you go down and down in the boat, and there you have it. Okay? So that's fine, that's fine. So there you go. So that's ha, and ha is just a stage of learning, and that's fine. Now, the next one that's really interesting is ri. So ri means leave. So shu means follow, or learn one technique. Ha means break, or collect techniques. And ri means leave. Well, that's when you leave the dojo, right? You've learned whatever the guy has to learn. You've learned all the weapons, all the techniques. People at the ri level operate by reflex. They do something different every time. They're very, very sensitive to very subtle cues around them, and they will do something different every single time. Anybody who cooks, right? You guys ever ask anybody who's a good cook and you ask them for the recipe? Do they have any idea what the recipe is? No. You go and I don't know, we had some, and then to taste, right? You do it to feel. You stir it till it thickens till it's about right? And then you add spices to taste, so it's good. Right? That's ri. Ri people are useless at instructing because they don't ever do it the same way twice. Like it's a subconscious full body experience. And you guys all have some version, someplace where you ri. My favorite ri story is my wife was driving across town, and I had a 10 or 12-year-old son, and hyperactive like any good son should be. And so I decided we're going to bake bread. Baking bread's good because you have to, pound the gluten and mash it up, and unlike pie crusts where that's not a good idea. Any pie crust bakers in here? No? Yes? Do you do pie crusts? Yeah, you don't mash them around, right? You just barely touch them. My first pie crust I ever made, I thought it was bread, and I was kneading that sucker. It was very bad pie crust. Anyway, so he's throwing the thing down on the counter and pounding on it and having a great time, and I call her up and I say, what temperature do I set the oven to? And she says, it needs more water. Now, is that good or is that good, right? So I listened for a bit, and I can hear the thumping, and I go, yeah, actually, I can even hear that it needs more water. Thank you. What temperature do I set it to? And he said, wow, that's impressive. Okay, that's ri. Okay, and that's why Jeff Patton hasn't, it took Jeff Patton 12 years to write his story mapping book, 12. I actually spent the whole summer of 2006 trying to get him to write it. And he proved he could not write faster than I could get him to write. Like he would write a bit, go on a trip, he'd come back and say, but I did it differently this time. And I go, yeah, shu-ha-ri, baby, yeah, we know about that, let's write it down. But if I write it down, everybody will do it and it's wrong. It's just what I did one time. I know it's called shu. Everybody's waiting for the shu. Well, get the book out, write it down. No, but it's different. Yes, shu-ha-ri, baby, come on, just write it down, baby. Nothing. And so finally, like in 2014, now he showed me this technique in 2004. In 2014, he got a ghostwriter and they put the book out, right? And I don't know which version of his technique is in there, but there's some version in there. That's ri. And I'll give you a ri example in methodology, where this is my specialty. So I'm in Helsinki at Nokia. This is by like telling a story, right? I told you I'd tell stories. And they had a project with 2 UI designers in Helsinki and a Scrum team in Beijing. And they said the problem is that the Scrum team in Beijing won't make a sprint commitment. And we don't know what to do. They said that the UI designers keep changing their mind. And I said, okay, well, there's a technique. It's called pipelining. Pipelining is kind of like waterfall type of a thing, but the official term is pipelining. And you have the UX people, they freeze the design for 2 weeks, right? Ship it off to China, and the Chinese people then have a fixed, stable spec for 2 weeks, and they code it up, they make a sprint commitment. And then after 2 weeks, you change the spec, and you're right. And so you kind of step your way forward through design in 2-week lumps. It's a bit lumpy, but it works across distances. And they said, yeah, but we sent the UI designers to Beijing, and they didn't have any trouble. Like, what's that all about? And I said, oh, like a ri person says, oh, that's completely different, right? Oh, that's completely different. Because the programmers are walking around the halls and the UI people are walking around the halls, and they're talking to each other all the time. So the programmers hear about the upcoming change that might happen, right? They're already processing that in their brain, and at some point in time, the UI designer says, yeah, we're going to go with this one, and they got it mapped out. They've got it done, right? So it's not like they come in the morning and the evil overlords from Finland have changed the spec once again, right? Pull the carpet out from under them, which is what was happening. So I said, look, so you run two different protocols. When the UI designers are in Helsinki, you run the pipeline protocol, and when they're in Beijing, you run concurrent engineering is the official name for that. But you see here, this is the same company, the same assignment, the same people, the same month. All we did was move two heads from here to there, and we run the complete opposite strategy, right? You can't even call it process, right? The opposite process, opposite strategy, opposite method. It's opposite. That's re. That's re. You change anything, and you might totally reverse the result. Re-level people are annoying because they keep saying, oh, it depends. I'll know it when I see it. Trust me. Yeah, it's okay. Don't worry about it. Right? That's re-level people. And the shu-level people are going, just tell me how to do it. Just give me one way. I'll do it. I promise. I'll do it exactly to the letter. So there's a fundamental contradiction between shu and ri, and you just have to live with it. All the people come in through the doorway marked shu. To be competitive in an international situation, you need some re-level people around to do that, whatever that magic is that they do. And that people grow. So you accept it, right? So, oh, you shu-level, oh, you re-level people, put up with the shu-level people asking for a simple way. Shu-level people learn it to get out of the shoebox, right? And then go into ha and so on. So this is my example on the diving of ri. So this is my favorite place, one of my favorite places in the world. It's in Nice, southern France. And at the end, anybody from France here? Oh, you guys are from nowhere. Where? From Nice? Did we already do this once before in my previous talk or no? Ah, je t'aime, c'est bon. So you know at the end of the Promenade des Anglais États-Unis thing, there's a cliff there. And what's really ironic is there's a little grotto right there, and there's a police-hosted restaurant inside the grotto. And there's a big sign there that says no diving. Well, obviously because it's dangerous, right? And so every half hour or hour, the police boat comes and chases. You see how many people there, right? They're all out there, mostly North African kids. And it's about 7 or 8 meters up, and you have to go out about 7 or 8 meters, and there's some rocks under the water, and you have to go past the rocks and hit the clear space. It's dangerous, right? That's why they say no diving at the top. Sensible thing. So the thing about this is ri is you only get one try on this guy, right? And you don't get to do it twice unless you get the first one right. And there's no safety nets. You just have to do it. Like if you can't do it, don't do it. And when I went there the first time, there was this middle-aged guy. You notice I'm not middle-aged. He was middle-aged. There's this middle-aged guy there, and I wanted to see if we could do this. So there was this kid there, and I go, if you jump off, I want to see what it takes to jump off. So he jumps off, and the other guy, the older middle-aged guy, this old guy, middle-aged, says, that's not for people our age. And I thought, that may not be for people your age, my age, right? So I'm going to show you a video of this. And in the video, I don't know how to single frame it. I'll play it a little bit. I don't know how to slow-mo it. I'll learn that one of these days. But watch, in the first 2/3 of a second, my body changes like this, 4 times in 2/3 of a second, right? You are not operating at a conscious nothing, right? So you push off, and the vertical distance the horizontal distance is a given at that moment, right? You can't do anything about the horizontal distance once you push off. And all you can mess with is the rate of rotation, right? I'm slowing it down. When you watch it, it's unbelievable to me that the body can actually sense stuff that fast. So let's just go see what that one looks like. Yeah, if I do that. I may be middle-aged, but I need my wee glasses. All right, good deal. And I have the sound cut off still. So there's everybody, all the kids. This is before I had my re-tattoo. I think I got my re-tattoo sometime shortly after this. Did you see all the wiggles? And then my flip-flops come off. There we go. Right. And just to back it up, so it's not every frame, which I wish it would be. So there's that, right? And then it looks like I just got dropped out of a balloon or something like that by my swimsuit. The change, and obviously I'm working on how to get that rotationally thing right. And it comes out okay, right? At the very end. It's like all good re people. Yeah, don't worry about it. It'll come out. I clear the rocks underwater and hit the little good spot there. We'll just see if I can hit that right now. Right? You see all the little wiggles in there. So that's re, right? That's re. And I ran across Shuhari in about 2000 when I was writing one of my books. And I always thought that was the end of the story. So you Shuhari people, that's the end of the story as you know it. When I was looking for the radical simplification of Agile, I was looking for ways to express this idea of being in the center. And I ran across the Japanese, I wanted to stay in the Japanese tradition, I have Shuhari. And I found this word, shin in Chinese and kokoro in Japanese. So I have to use the Japanese word because it's in the Japanese tradition. And it means spirit or heart, synonymously, heart and spirit. Right, not heart like I heart you, but heart as in the heart of something or the spirit of something. And it turns out it's got a good pedigree. The samurai Musashi in the 1600s used it when he was describing the art of being a samurai, and he would say the spirit of being samurai is this, or the heart of being this. And he would use this character, let's get this character back up here. He would use this character, Kokoro, to describe it. And I decided that's exactly what I was looking for Agile. What is the Kokoro, the heart, the spirit, the center of Agile? Because we want to get to it. And then when I was studying up on that, what I found is that it actually in all fields, including in Kundalini Yoga, as I just learned this afternoon, when you get to a certain level of expertise and you want to pass along your expertise, you have to re-simplify things again. You guys have seen Karate Kid, Mr. Miyagi? Wax on, wax off, wax on. The guy's annoying. Paint my fence, wax my car. Paint my fence, wax my car. But aren't you going to teach me how to fight? Paint my fence, wax my car, right? Wax on, wax off. These guys are annoying because they say, just master the basics. Yeah, but I saw you did this really incredible thing. Yeah. It all comes from the basics. Just master the basics, right? Very annoying people. Like, re-level people are annoying because they say, I don't know, I can figure it. Just, let me do it. And Kokoro level people are annoying because they say, just master the basics. Yeah? And so there's this really interesting thing. If you graph that as the mastery gets better, right? And what I love is the Japanese, the kanji matches it too, right? So the shu is pretty simple. Ha is more complex. Ri is a crazy complex. And Kokoro, the symbol, is even simpler than the shu symbol, right? It's really interesting how that happens. I couldn't guess why that is. But in any case, so to show you Kokoro, and Kokoro in diving is very boring, right? I actually looked for somebody diving off a 10-meter, 20-meter, 30-meter platform doing a swan dive. There's just nothing to see, right? They just do it, and yeah. So as it happens, 2 years later, I was back at that place again, and I got one of the policemen to film me. Those of you who know me, I love playing with that stuff. And I tried to show it to his boss. And his boss said, no, I'm not going to look at it. You're not allowed to dive from up there. I go, yeah, it's okay. I promise I won't anymore. I already have the video. So this one's cool because it's in slow-mo, so you can actually see. And the thing to see is that there's nothing to see. Right? Nothing. Nothing. Right? You can't teach anybody from that because there's nothing to see. So people at the, and the flip-flops come off, of course, right? They still have the flip-flops holding it all, the scene together and all that stuff. So the thing about Kokoro is very, very hard to tell what's going on. When I started off in 91 doing my interviews, project interviews, I remember interviewing a guy who had a successful 150-person project. And I learned nothing from him because they just did everything right. I mean, he had done 150-person projects before. He knew what he was doing. And they just added some object-oriented stuff because that's what I was interested in interviewing about. And they just went to the end. I didn't know what the options were at any point, that he had chosen this instead of this and this instead of this. So it's very hard to learn from Kokoro level people, right? Because they just say just master the basics if you're just interviewing. Now in terms of learning, when you understand these things, you just master the basics. So I'm learning Tango and I've been going at it for 2 years, doing the shu-ha stuff, going crazy. And now I just look for teachers who teach Kokoro. Just teach me the basics. All I want's the basics. All I want's the basics. I'll work it out. So Kokoro is kind of interesting because I'm messing with the Aikido Japanese tradition by adding the fourth word. But we need it to talk about the stuff that I'm talking about, which is the heart of Agile. So the question is then, what does that mean now for Agile? So there's Agile no Kokoro, heart of Agile. And I selected those 4 words for you. So I had to give you all the Shuhari Kokoro to understand why there's only 4 words, right? I'm claiming that this is the basics that you master, and I've been testing it out for about 1.5 years now, and it's holding up pretty well. I haven't found holes in it. I've been looking. I used to do workshops where we tried to find holes in it so I could see like it wasn't all screwed up or it was all screwed up, and it's holding up pretty well. And at scale, I used to defend SAFe on the basis that it normalized vocabulary across a large organization. And I've been in an organization, and actually normalizing the lexicon of the language that you use is very expensive because people fight tooth and nail. Is it going to be iteration? Is it going to be sprint? Is it going to be coach? Is it going to be scrum master? Is it going to be a user story? Is it going to be backlog item, right? People will fight to the death over this thing. So you really save a lot of money. You can save hundreds of thousands of dollars just by normalizing. You say, okay, now it's going to be scrum, sprint, backlog of backlog, scrum of scrums, product owner, Kanban at the top, flow down, release train, right? Okay, stop arguing. We have the word. We haven't changed anybody's attitude. We haven't changed anybody's behavior, but we've normalized the vocabulary. So what struck me was if you were going to spend $2 million or something on installing SAFe, I don't know what the charge, and all you get is a normalized vocabulary and relabeling of the jobs, you actually haven't moved the company after your $2 million in 1 year, however long it takes to. You haven't moved the company. Now, suppose we take the same $2 million, and I'm going to put $1 million on just improving collaboration. That's the whole focus. We go get survey instruments and research people and whoever the sociologists and psychologists and whatever those people are, and they come in to do the magic. It's not actually that hard because everybody knows if they're collaborating or not. And they know they're not, and they know why they're not, and they know what they should do. It's actually not a mystery. Somebody asked me when I came out with this, who's in the facilitation space and does the accreditation of public facilitators. And I know how they do that. I watched their spreadsheet. I went through that process. And she said they measure, like for facilitators, have 30 core competencies for facilitation. So she writes on Facebook, when I publish this, what are the core competencies of collaboration? And I knew where she was going with it. She was going down the rabbit hole. And I went, shut up. You know if you're collaborating or not. You guys collaborate on a scale of 1 to 10. How well are your group collaborating? 7, he was going to say 3. Doesn't matter. You know it. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You know it, right? Would you know if it got better? Sure. Would you probably have an idea how to make it go better? Sure. Right? There probably are core competencies, 10 or 20 or 30 of them. And no doubt that's good. And you can get really far just saying, how's collaboration doing? Can we do better? Right? $1 million only on improving collaboration across departments and across job specialties. Only. We'll take the other $1 million and we'll prove your ability to deliver. Frequency of delivery, speed of delivery, feedback from delivery. $1 million, right? On my $2 million, I'm proposing that we're going to move the company. We're going to move the attitudes, move the behaviors, and move the company some distance in the same length of time it would take to install SAFe. So at that point, I stopped defending SAFe, right? Because I think there's a better spend of the money. And that's why I'm pushing on this. Now, the thing is, I keep telling people I only have 4 words, right? There's only 4 words. But in fact, this thing unfolds like the Kundalini yoga Buddhist thingy with the 8 and the 4 and the 3 and the 6 and the whatnots, It unfolds. And so I'm going to unfold it for you a little bit and just show you how that looks when you unfold it and refold it back up again. So I used to make one of these little, it's called a fortune teller thingy. And so I had my 4 words. I used to make, like a year ago, you'd all been folding bits of paper and making yourself a fortune teller. So you can be thankful it's this year, not last year. But each one of these has to become 2 things. So I picked 2 for each. And so for collaborate, I picked trust. Oh my God, there's a topic for you. How are we going to increase trust? Oh, wow, that's a deep topic, right? Shu-ha-ri, this technique, survey instruments, you go after that guy. Motivation and collaboration, which I'm going to split apart a little bit in a moment. For deliver, there's all the internal stuff. That's all of lean, Kanban, queue management, work in progress, limited hard whip limits. All of that type of stuff fits in the internal structure around delivery. But it turns out that what I'm finding more interesting these days is the difference between delivering for income and delivering for learning. We know about deliver for staged rollout for income early, MVP, early revenue, self-paying projects, all that kind of stuff. But people aren't very good at understanding the value of delivering. I don't even care the cost because I want to find out where we're wrong. Right? You're wrong somewhere, you just don't know where. Now we'd like to find out where we're wrong, or if we're not far wrong, if we could do something even better than what we've got. So delivering for learning is worth a lot of money. You're not after recouping. It's no ROI, direct ROI on that. You're trying to just make a better product. Delivery for learning, and I'm going to expand that for you guys just to see where it goes. And then reflect, there's data analytics. There's crazy analytics available that people do not take advantage of, right? So you want to analytics, you want to go, it's called computational anthropology. I just saw this job title a few months ago. So these are the people who go through the data and try to figure out what's happening, what's the psychology and the behavior behind the data that generates the traces that we're seeing, computational anthropology. And then in the improved thing, there's a thing actually pretty strong here in London called solutions focus. It's a psychotherapy style. It came out in the 1970s. And in fact, last Thursday and Friday, the reason I'm here was to take a course on brief therapy, brief coaching, which is a sub-brand of solutions focus. So we're bringing those things, from that field into the organizational world. It's very interesting. But I'm going to expand it one more just to show you. Right, we've tried to do mind maps on this thing, and it's endless. It just keeps going and going. But what I want to do is just pick, I'm going to pick collaboration for one, go down that path just for a moment, and there's a shu-level technique around collaboration that's not a bad thing to know about. And I did some research about 10 years ago and wrote it up in my website and boiled it all down, and there's a deck of about 16 or 20 what I call collaboration cards, which are things that everybody and anybody can do on the minute-by-minute level, on the second-by-second level that will improve collaboration. Right? I've never seen actually a book or a research study. I think this is the only time it's been done with grounded research, those of you know what that is. And I've got these cards, and so you're supposed to lift others, lower your relative social position, get a result, be yourself, keep your energy high. All of those things will improve the quality of collaboration on a minute-by-minute basis. Okay? I'm not going to go into that. We use that in the advanced course. If you come to the advanced course, we'll start off by giving those out, and we'll do some kind of like introspection about the use of those. We'll watch them for being used and violated in the class and learn how to use them and so on like that. Right? So that is collaboration at the shu level. So I'm going to fold that back up. I'm going to pop over to one of my favorite topics, which is delivering for learning. So I'm going really fast here. Right? Each of these has got its own lecture thing, but I'm just showing you what happens. And inside of here, we've got knowledge on the vertical axis. So I always put a cost line, so we have a reference, cost going up. But I'm really interested in the way, if you don't try to do big bang integration and big bang delivery, which people still do, but you do, like you check in your code every hour or every half day or every 2 days. Whenever you check in your code, you do push and all that stuff, something might break. Actually, there's a breakage point. Every time you run your tests, there's a breakage point. Every time you show your users a paper prototype, there's a breakage point. Every time you do a release to a niche segment of your server farm, you have a breakage point. Right? Every time you show anything to a stakeholder, you have a breakage point. So what we want to do is to recognize these and artfully stage our questions so that we're in control somewhat of what I call no late bad news. All bad news early. And you notice I will never say fail fast, fail early, fail often. I hate failure. I don't want to fail. In order to not fail, you have to learn early, learn often. To maximize the length of time you have to react to bad news. Right? It's bad news waiting for you. What we're trying to do through the artful selection of questions is hypotheses. So this is hypothesis-based development. And it's a thing now. I've seen 5 companies literally doing this, right? So 5 is a big number as I go around the world. So when I saw like the 3rd or the 4th, when I saw 1 or 2, I go, yeah, that's pretty amazing. But when I saw 4 or 5, I go, oh, this is a thing now. Agile in 2016 is different than Agile in 2014 because people are really doing hypothesis-based development. And they're asking where are the breakage points? How can I find the breakage points early? I never want to hear an Agile project saying, we were doing great till we got to load testing. right? Or we did it on the Android, and then like XP projects ran into this problem with their Yagni stuff, right? We did it fine on the iPhone. We went to an Android and everything broke, right? Or vice versa, right? All of those are things you can run. You can run a learning cycle exactly on that, load testing, API compatibility. But in fact, so you want a knowledge growth curve that looks like that, so that you after a while, from a risk perspective, you don't care what you do, it's anything in any order, and now you're driving by business value. So this is not Scrum as you learned it 10 years ago, which was highest business value first. This is a blend of business value and learning. And what we're learning about is the business. What is probably a better thing to be building than whatever we think it is? Even if what we've got is good, there's something a little bit better, let's find out. But probably there's something fundamentally flawed with what we're doing. How early can we find out? That's business. Social learning, it takes time for people to learn how each other work. It takes time. You have to have arguments. You have to have failures. You have to do something together. You have to have bonding, norming, storming, forming, performing. All those things fit in. It takes time. Can you do very specific things early in the project to enhance the learning? And the answer is yes. And you fold it into the schedule. And the last one is cost and schedule learning. I'm tired of Agile people saying Agile means there's no schedule. No schedule, no budget. That's not true, not true, not true. It was not on our minds when we wrote that. Maybe on someone's mind. For sure it was not on the mind of some of us. Okay? So you're trying to do discovery of how big is this problem? How big is this problem? How long is it going to take? How much money is it going to, right? Do we have the right people? Are we aiming at the right place? Do we have the right market segment, right? There's a lot of questions, but including specifically cost and schedule. The benefit out of this is that you get this long tail area where the business is in control, very fine-grained control of the release moment. So I to bring the stories back into the lecture, I was in Nokia and the head of process goes, so what have you Agile guys got to offer us? We have 10,000 programmers in 7 countries and 150 apps that we have to integrate. We release 120 phone models a year. What are you going to give us? And I gave him this. I said, when you're doing your big integration milestone on the 1st of June, everybody's behind schedule. But because they can't play this fine-grained trimming game, which we've got if we work this way, all they can do is work overtime and delay. That's it. Overtime, delay. That's all you've got. But if you work this way, you have the opportunity to trim off the thing. You can integrate with what you've got, and what you've got is the most important stuff by definition. You thought about it. If you're going to deliver, let's say your competitor comes out with a product and you have to rush to market, you can deliver something that's almost there. Or you can delay and make it better, your choice. And Apple's the superstar of this. They do this all the time. And the example I'll pick is the iPad, when it first came out, had no modem in it. And all the Mac heads didn't care because they had Wi-Fi access. They got a Mac. They got an iPad. The first on the block with an iPad. They're super cool. Then a few months later, they came out with a modem in it, and all the Mac heads went out and bought a second one because then that's double cool because they get one on the road and you got one by your bed or whatever it is. And so they hit both sides of the window, and Apple is a champion at doing that. So that's super cool. I give whole lectures of that. We study up on it, but I just want to show you that's deliver for learning, and there's the 4 things you learn. Right? So these complex issues that we go and we talk about, and they have a home in these 4 words. I'm going to pick one more, motivation. This is the newest one. This is a guy called Neil Nicolaisen, who's just a magician at the COO, CIO level. Typically smaller companies, not the giant ones. And his latest, aha, is a 2x2 matrix, which I can't read, so I made these little kind of like islands, peninsulas connected by a bridge thing. But basically he said that if you don't have ownership and trust, you've got a command and control structure, which if you map it to sociology is called a Theory X model of workers. And we really want to get to trust and ownership where we get energy and innovation, and that's a Theory Y model of workers. And what that means is the Theory X says, well, people are fundamentally lazy and they don't want to work, and you have to push them, and they're laborers, and they probably don't have a good education, and management knows best. So management's going to work it all out and tell them what to do. And the good thing is if you're doing physical labor and someone yells at you to go faster, you go faster, right? Go faster! And you twitch, and you go faster, right? Now, the bad news is that doesn't work if you're doing mental work. So if you do mental work, this is Theory Y, the assumption is people are basically motivated and you're just trying to clear a path for them so they can do their shining and all that good stuff. Now it works in mental work, If you're trying to do a design of something and someone comes up behind you and goes, go faster, you go, yeah, stop it, right? You know, I'm trying to think about this. So you go slower if you do the push and the yelling and all that stuff. So the mental work worsens under stress. We're after a theory Y. Now, where this comes to play is if you're in an organization, let's take a big one like IBM just for the sake of argument because we're standing here. The Wall Street doesn't give a darn about any executive's private life. They could have ulcers, they could be divorced, they can have a mental breakdown, they can suffer from stress. Wall Street doesn't care. Stockholders don't care. Right? That's an X. That's theory X. That's a push model. But down below, we're trying to create an atmosphere for mental work, for creative mental work. We need theory Y. So somebody inside the hierarchy has to convert the theory X push stuff, be an umbrella, what I call the push-pull umbrella, and generate that shade. When we talk about it, generate shade for the people below. And I think that in big organizations, you probably need several layers because that's a hard job. And you burn people out by pushing them at the top. And the people down below think they're doing nothing. Yeah, my manager doesn't do anything, just kind of keeps distractions away. Wow, right? That person is converting cultures. Theory X above, theory Y below. So we're trying to get that umbrella. All right. We're kind of at the end. I just wanted to show how some of these things, so any topic that I would talk about, I can find a home. And the point is, you only need these 4 words, right? Take your complicated topic, no doubt life is complicated, just periodically clear the desk and say, all right, collaborate, deliver, reflect, improve. How are we doing on the collaboration? How are we doing on the delivery? Do we ever stop and reflect? Yeah, what's our next little improvement thing? Run the little cycles, right? And things get complex, then you simplify it again. They get complex, then you simplify it again. So that's the heart of Agile. And that's why I talked a lot, but I had fun. I told some of my stories. So that's the end of the first part. And what that means, very specifically, is I get to have my second beer. So now I'm between you and beers, and you guys are going, I don't want to ask any questions. But this is the time where you guys get to ask anything, and I have to answer with a story. So I'm hoping that inside of all of that, some of you have come to this evening with any topic, question on your mind, and I'll just see what I can do with it. Any topic, any question? Back, 1, 2, 3. Where does deliberate discovery come into it? So I have to tell a story. What's my story about that one? Well, only that I heard, I met Dan North in 2003 at the first Agile conference and was really, really impressed. This guy has a very good knack for observing things and naming things. And he's the guy who came up with BDD. At the time, 2003, he was the guy who was flogging behavior-driven development. And then I published, I go off in my head and think about things. And I wrote this thing, Design as Knowledge Acquisition, and was collecting examples of it in many places. The whole lean startup is part of it. And then I discovered he had put out deliberate discovery on his blog. So deliberate discovery is a synonym for what I call disciplined learning. And it's exactly that curve, right? So that's that. And my wee story is only that we got to go out and have some drinks together. And he's a cool guy. I have a lot of respect for him. And who is the second person? Thank you very much.
Hi, could I give you a mic just to...
I'll repeat the question, if it's okay. It'll just be faster.
Hi, yeah, so I'm from Accenture. I'm an Enterprise Agile Transformation Manager. So I spent the last 2 years working through a great many multinationals. And one of the things that I found, particularly in the large organizations, is they actually don't understand what collaboration means. In their world, collaboration is sending somebody a document for review at the same time as you're reading the feedback from the last one. And when you explain that it's about people extending themselves beyond their job titles, it takes a really long while to sink in.
Can you hear what he's saying over there?
Yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
In fact, I was at a training course in
I'm just going to wonder, there's an old album called Fireside Theater. Anybody old enough to have heard Fireside Theater? There's a computer thing, and it says, could you phrase that as a question, please? I'm sure you must be bursting with a short question.
How do you large organizations to change a culture where extending yourself beyond your job title is perceived as a very high risk activity.
Did you hear the question? I love that question. I have no stories on that question. Now just to be, and I'm going to tell you a couple of stories a little bit related to that, but the interesting thing is I get asked this question quite a lot. And I have in 20 years of work, a grand total of 0 success stories. And I was just called upon to do this work with a big company, a multinational big company. And so I wanted to check that I wasn't hallucinating before I went in there. And I called a couple of people who've been doing big transformation type work for 10 years. And I said, I got no success stories. Like, what have you got? And they said, none. Okay? So that's my story about not having stories. That's my escape note. So you have a note by telling a story. But what's interesting so the first time I was asked that, I was really caught off guard. I don't have any stories. That's weird. Like what? It's empty, right? The warehouse is completely empty. But I realized that if you flipped it around, there's a packet of stories just sitting right next door. And I'll tell you that one. So I went to Borland. I can talk about this now. Around 2006 in Austin, Texas. And Borland wasn't particularly noted for being agile. So we go into this building, and the guy's giving me the tour, and he's doing we agile this, that, stand-ups, sticky notes, all this stuff. And I said, well, that's amazing. That's amazing. I've never seen a company do that. How did you transform everybody in this building to be working this way? He says, oh, we didn't. This is a new building. And I went, he said, so we opened up a new building, and there were people that we knew wanted to work in the Agile way, so we invited them in the building. And the people we knew didn't want to work in, and we didn't invite them in the building, and we hired a bunch of other people, and they came in the building. But you watch what happens now is that everybody who walks into the door, everybody who opens the front door, already has the attitude that you want to show up at work. And they just said, we don't attempt to convert anybody's thinking A to thinking B. They just come in the door and they're that. So that's story one. And then when I look at the stories, this is generally what I find is Spotify, right? Startups, we find that a lot. Now, actually, I do have one story of a conversion. It was pretty small. It's a company in Australia called realestateassociates.com, which is the Australian version of Spotify. And I really ought to go just spend a month there and do like Henrik Knieberg and do all the anthropology stuff and write it up because they're so awesome. They should be written up. They've been doing this for years. But it was a guy from ThoughtWorks, a former ThoughtWorks guy who in 2010, if I've got it right, they had about 200 people. It wasn't all that big. But he went in, it was a heavy stage company, and he wanted to do the Agile stuff. And he said, we did it in 2 years. By the way, 2 years, right? A fast transformation of 200 people is 2 years, right? Just do the math, everybody. And I said, well, what did you do? And he said, well, this is the story that gives you the answer. He said, well, basically some people wanted to do something, and I don't know, it was co-locate or tear down walls or whatever it happened to be, or use sticky notes, whatever it was, use Jira, whatever it was. And I just said, sure, okay. And then somebody else asked me to do something, and I just said, sure. And basically every time they ever asked anything, I just said, sure, why not? Yeah, go, right? Instead of saying you can't move those sofas, sure. Well, you could imagine inside this culture, like boss is saying yes. Hey, let's go, right? Is that reflect and improve, right on the diamond? That's reflect and improve, reflect and improve. So he was just like letting it happen. And as they saw that it happened, then good things happened, and they kept asking for more things. And then after he'd been describing this, I said, it's really great, but I recall going to a company, and what struck me about the company is nobody was curious. And the CTO asked me, Alistair, how do I make my workers curious? And I said, it's too late. I went past their desks. Nobody has a book on their desk. They're not on the discussion groups. They're not doing, whatever, open source projects. They just come to work, they type, and they go home. You hired the wrong people. I can't convert them from non-curious people to curious people. You did that when you let them in the door. So I mentioned this to this guy from REA.com, and he just had a smile. He says, yes, hiring is very important. He says, I go around giving talks now about how we hire people. Yeah, okay? So you let them in the door. But so there's two parts. You let them in the door, right? Only those people come in the door. And you just say yes and yes and yes and yes and yes. So you're getting this kind of bravery kind of thing happening, pop, pop, pop. So that's how I answer questions, and we have a question down here.
You answered my question with the ballroom story.
Oh, excellent, good. So we're open for questions. Yes, please.
You spent $2 million on collaborate and deliver. Why didn't you spend any on reflect?
I have that buried inside probably the collaboration budget, you know. So actually, you know, I have a rule. I never do organizational transformations because that's not my specialty. I'm a visitor to every culture, so I don't try to tamper with people's cultures. But actually, there's a company in Australia that just before I left there, they had me do my Agile, Heart of Agile workshop day. 150 people, it was fun, people running in and out games and stuff. And they got real excited about that. And they took literally this picture to the CEO of their company, which has been acquired, whatever, but of their company, and said, we would like to do this. And he looked at the words on there and says, yes, the whole company, go. So now I'm like, I have to do organizational transformation, right? And so I've been talking with him, and what am I going to do? You could, I don't know if your brain goes the same place where my brain is the first thing we have to do is ask everybody to turn in a little spreadsheet that says, here are the people that I need to collaborate with to get work out the door. So that would be, you know, customer support or testing or ops or whoever it happens to be. So that's the names. And here's the strength of collaboration I need, you know, low, medium, high. And here's the quality of collaboration I have at the moment between 1 and 10, like I asked these guys. And the last one is, here's anything I can think of that on my own would possibly enhance the collaboration. So if everybody turns that in, that's not all that hard. You merge it together, you get a social network graph that you can then operate at a global scale and look for blah, 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 blah. So, and you do a similar thing for delivery, right? And then we'll look at the practices around reflecting, and obviously. Now the improving part, the word on the street these days, and the reason I'm learning solutions focus is to take micro steps. We don't try to do big steps. And so what I'm saying to him is maybe we'll just light 1,000 candles rather than having a big spotlight. And if everybody takes one step forward to improve collaboration, and then we reflect, and we do one more small step, and then we reflect, and do one more, right? If you get 200, 300, 600 people doing that, there's a lot of movement happening. So that's my, who knows what that's happened. But that's the thinking behind it. Yes, please.
Are you disappointed in the dominance of Scrum compared with, say, Crystal?
Oh, that's a personal question. Well done. Well done. Welcome to London, where people ask these kinds of questions. I knew you were going to be like this. That's why I'm very happy to be here. I figure 150 to 1 is kind of even odds, right? It's fair enough. So I have a personal problem that my first boss, when I was little, said to me. We were talking about something. He goes, hell for Alistair would be groupies. You see the problem I've got right now? It's kind of a, right? So I write Crystal, and people start trying to do Crystal. I go, what are you doing? Stop following me. Go, it's my way. Go find your own way, right? And by the way, Crystal is defined at RE level. It's deliberately defined at RE level. There is no SHU level implementation of Crystal, and I refuse to do it. Now, Heart of Agile, I've learned, admits of a HA-level expansion, and I'm going to do a HA-level expansion of that over time. But because all people are coming in fresh, they want the SHU level, so XP is at a SHU level. Here's the irony. Scrum is defined at RE level. If you guys don't know that. Scrum is 5 sentences. All of Scrum is 5 sentences. I'll tell you what they are. Everything else is an add-on, right? So the first sentence of Scrum is deliver every sprint. Actually, there's fine print. That's your escape clause, which says demo or deliver every sprint. In 2001, all I said was demo every sprint. But by 2008, when I saw Ken teach again, he had seen so many people actually delivering, and the value of an actual delivery, the learning quality is so much better, that he was telling people to deliver every sprint. But in the fine print, it says you can still just demo, right? So rule 1, demo or deliver every sprint. Rule 2, it's the magic rule, says management allegedly collected people, cross-functional people with sufficient skill base that could actually pull off the job. That was their assignment, right? Is to get the people and put them on the job. Having done that, getting a group of people and that are sufficient to the task, and giving them an assignment, management butts out. No micromanagement. That's where the self-organization, self-management stuff comes in. Once you say rule number 2, you can't say anything more. You can't add anything. And I remember when burn down charts were in the core of Scrum, and I was saying that's a barnacle attached to the outside, it's not core Scrum, and giving teams permission to not do burn down charts. And one of the managers said to this person came to my class and said, I'm very happy to see we could explore other ideas besides like burn down charts. He says, no, you can't. We're going to do Scrum by the book. You have to have a burn down chart. And I wrote to his manager and said, if you're going to do Scrum by the book, he can't write that email. Rule 2, team decides. Rule 3, this is a complicated story. You need to inspect and adapt every day in every sprint, right? Inspect and adapt. We know that. Now, the last 2 sentences are they're a little bit close to barnacles, but they give Scrum its fingerprint. But you're going to see how I phrase them very, very, very specifically. And by the way, I've run these sentences past Ken Schwaber and Jeff Sutherland, so I've checked them. The 4th one is, but notice the difference in tone here. It's a good idea if you have somebody with some spare capacity who can go around the organization and take care of problems and impediments and roadblocks and things, so that your best programmers and database people and UX people and test people aren't spending their time running around trying to get 5 signatures on a piece of paper. That person, who we will call the chief impediment remover, not the only impediment. I have an impediment. I don't have any coffee. Scrum Master, right? So its chief impediment remover is the Scrum Master. But notice the Scrum Master has no power. The Scrum Master's there, right? You're laying out a road, and you've got this machine, rolling, right? People putting in the tar. It's a good idea that someone go take the twigs, out before these guys don't have to stop and get out, take out a twig and get back in, right? That's the Scrum Master. The Scrum Master's running ahead, taking care, right? But it's a good idea. It is a good idea. But that's the Scrum Master. And the last one is the product owner. And this is very close to a barnacle. It's a solution, a good, decent solution to a frequently encountered problem, which you wouldn't think would belong in the core of Scrum. But what happens is the programmers are all working, and a salesperson comes down and says, I got this great client. You just put this in. I'm going to get a commission so big I'm going to Hawaii. Put this in. I'll buy you a beer. I'll buy you a pizza. I'll buy you 2 pizzas, right? Just put this in. And so you get all these salespeople coming down, and the programmers are getting pulled in all different directions. Or the other problem is the programmers have a question, they ask 3 different people, they get 3 different answers, right? And so, Jeff and Ken go sort that out. There's literally going to be 1 pair of vocal cords that establish priorities and sort out these questions. We never have a question. If a salesperson comes down, right, it's the Scrum Master product owner runs interference. He says, go talk to the product owner, put it in the queue, blah, 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 right? So it's a sorting out. So it's a good answer to a frequently encountered problem, and that's the product owner. Now, that's Scrum. 5 sentences. It's re. That's re. There are no anythings. But, Ken's a helpful guy. What are we supposed to talk about when we get together every day? Oh, no, you could, I use these 3 questions. And then he said in 2008, God, I'm so sad I saw that. I wrote that because if I had to answer those 3 questions every day for the rest of my life, I'd just get out of the business. I'm not even But he's a helpful guy. So as people have asked him more and more and more questions, every book, Scrum keeps moving because the books keep getting thicker and changing, right? Helpful guy. He's trying to give you his best. But it's all, he's being helpful. Shoe level, don't get stuck in the shoebox, right? So the people who are debating, one of the questions we wrestle with in the advanced class, how long should a sprint be? Why did you pick 2 weeks? You want to know why you picked 2 weeks? I'll tell you why, because I've been around a lot long. XP in the 90s had 3-week iterations. Scrum had 1-month sprints, which is 4 and a bit, right? 4.4 weeks. And so the XP guys made fun of the Scrum guys because they're a bunch of weenies because they couldn't do 3-week iterations they had to do, right? So they had to do 4 weeks. So of course the Scrum guys shifted to 3 weeks, and the XP guys shifted to 2 weeks, and then the Scrum guys shifted to 2 weeks, right? Now they're at an impasse because nobody could do 1 week. Then the Kanban guys come along and go, why do you guys do in weeks? Why don't you just do continuous delivery? And everybody will go, oh, like that, blow everything up. But that's why you do 2 weeks. So it's a bad choice. For me, 2 weeks is too short and too long, at the same time. It's too short because for me, inside of a sprint or an iteration, you should have 2 releases to customers. You should write it up, demo it, get corrections, fix it up, demo it, get last moment corrections, then check it in and do it. That's what we call the customer's bill of rights. You don't have time for that in 2 weeks. You barely have done typing it all up and check it in. Oh, if you want changes, that's up to the product owner to decide the prioritization. That's unfair. You just did a bad job. So it's too short, but it's also too long, right? A week is a good time. Now, what we do in my classes is, any of you think a week is too short? We do an exercise, a programming exercise, where I give you 8-minute sprints, and you have to give a demo every 8 minutes. And you have to do 20 to 24 user stories in a total runtime of 40 minutes. Okay? After you go through that exercise, a week looks like a really long time. Right? So that's the 2. So all of these things got hardening of the arteries really fast, which is why I'm coming back and saying, yeah, you have to deliver, but you have to collaborate. So yeah, I'm sad in a certain sense. Now, the last thing, and I know I'm being taped, so somebody's going to watch this on the internet. Hi, Ken. But I said this next to Ken on stage, so I figured it's fair enough. So Ken deserves an island in the Bahamas or the Caribbean somewhere. It doesn't have to be very big, about that big. We'll probably do, not many boats, just drop off some food. No, he deserves an island in the Caribbean because he did something all of us have been trying to do for decades, and failed. So we were trying not me in the 80s, but already in the 90s, trying to get people to do incremental development, stage delivery. We could not. Decades people have spent. Ken comes along with this funny little 2-day certificate, certified Scrum Master. Everybody wants that on their emails. They all run to the classes, and then they go around in places like Martin Marietta and Lockheed and the big companies, running around going pigs, chickens, impediment, sprint, demo, inspect, adapt, Scrum, right stuff. And so now we've got 100,000 people in the big companies all running around, and they're all doing Scrum. So they're doing incremental development and stage delivery, thanks to the funny certified Scrum Master certificate with 100,000 people doing it. So I go, this guy is a genius, right? It was kind of like a boomerang effect, but doesn't matter. I just think he earned his island in the Caribbean, whatever size he wants it to be. All right, it's 8:10, maybe one more question, and it's been quiet from the back section over here. Anybody back there? That's the back section over here. Good, go for it. They're slow, you win.
Is anyone from the broader Agile community, or got any stories, maybe the right way to ask it, that's moving beyond working software? So I guess someone challenging the deliver word. Is there something where Agile isn't just for a CTO or a CIO?
I'm struggling to find the word software on that picture.
But a story. I'm asking.
I don't know. Can you phrase the question so it doesn't have the word software somewhere in it? Because software is not there.
No, sure. But all the stories have CIO, CTO, software.
Okay. Now, okay, maybe yeah.
Where it's deliver something that isn't working software, which of course is what the manifesto says. So is Agile even growing beyond working software?
Oh yeah. So that's a very good question. Agile has always been. I would say it took us maybe 4 months, maybe 6 months to figure out that what we had written. So we were a group of programmers, right? And basically, we're asking to be left alone. That's what we're doing, right? So you have to look at the historical context of the moment, right? In the 90s, the dominant power players were the Software Engineering Institute and the CMM at the time, CMM model, Capability Maturity Model, and they were after statistical process control of software development. And so it was all about measurements and statistics and processes and stuff. And the second power center was the Project Management Institute, and that's the PMP and the PMBOK and all that stuff. And they were all after, get back to plan. You got to get back to plan. Plan it out. You got to get back to, I don't know how many times I heard you got to get back to plan, right? So we have contracts, we have documents, we have processes and all this kind of stuff, and get back to plan. And the third power center was rational unified process, and there was processes and tools in there. So in fact, and I can say this now because it's 15 years later, when we were in the room, I thought it was pretty obvious who the enemy was. When you look at those things, right? Individual actions over processes and tools, right? Working software over comprehensive documentation, right? Customer collaboration over contract negotiation, responding to change over following a plan, getting back to plan, right? I have a twitch, obviously, I had too much of that. So we were saying, when we're writing software, so people, like, especially in the UX community, have criticized we didn't have UX in there, we don't have customer satisfaction in there, we don't have value of delivery, all that stuff. Well, we're thinking about, like, please just let us get our software out in increments. We were trying to get incremental, iterative, straight to customer, and the values in the principles, it's all done. We were thinking software. Now, maybe Jim Highsmith wasn't, because it turns out he's well-read and he had read about agile organizations, before that. So he had a head start on that. About 6 months later, we go, this doesn't have anything to do with software. We have the software word in there, but it actually doesn't have anything to do with software. So we'd change it to working product, right? But then Lean Startup came along. Now let's start to get to some of the stories. Lean Startup came along, and we're doing the same thing at the startup level, and they literally are not talking about software. And one of the things they do inside the Deliver for Learning is they were doing something about delivering menus, right? You call up or you go to the web or whatever, and you want food to show up. They actually had real chefs because they wanted to be able to change the process every single time. And so a person can do something different, right? Re-level person will do something different anyway. So they were working out what's a good process for their cooks and their offerings by doing that. So what I learned, though, in around 2009, I started trying to get this into marketing and construction and other places. It fits. But what I observed was there are two requirements to do that. First of all, you have to have somebody who's known in their industry, a name, who's credible. And you have to take all the stories, because I'm a software hardware guy. All I know is software hardware. It doesn't matter what I do, it'll sound like software hardware. I have house rebuilding, and I got kids' homework, and I got book publishing, right, as separate stories, right? So I could tell you about all of those things. But then someone has to take all the standard stories and find them in the construction industry or in the marketing. And I tried to do this with some marketing people, and they were just so turned off. Oh, I got software stories, So those are that's the holdup. It's the only holdup. The concepts work fine, but the holdup in adoption is to get anybody who's got credibility to generate the same stories, but in their own language, right? And so on. Just so you guys, do you guys have kids' homework? Kids' homework? I could tell you about kids' homework. So I could tell you about the house and the book and the kids' homework quickly, because it got nothing to do with software. There's no CTOs involved like that. So plans go out of date pretty fast, and software plans, project plans, typically go out of date within 2 weeks. But as always, we look to the construction industry as the guiding light on all of these things. And it turns out that as Martin Fowler said, software engineers are rank amateurs at cost overruns compared to civil engineers. Okay, just as being a kind of an example. So we had this house, I had this lovely big house, and it was on stilts, and so we wanted a basement under it. And people say, well, of course you always build a basement first. And what I learned is, no, you don't. You have a house and you build a basement under it. And it turns out there's an industry in building basements under existing houses. So I no longer accept that you have to have a basement first if someone says that. No, it's not true. So it was all up with beams and stuff. And so they worked out what they were going to do and put this big beam in stuff and whatnot. And so you go in the garage and there's a concrete wall. And on day one, they go in there. There's a bunch of older guys. It was a kind of a recession. So we had really good, smart, experienced old guys there. I loved that. I got such value for money. They take a sledgehammer and they punch a hole through the concrete in the garage, stick the head in and they go, oh, the beams are running the other way. I said, these guys are awesome. They invalidated their plan within the first hour. It takes us 2 weeks to invalidate the plan. These guys are amazing. So they started doing, daily stand-ups, right? What are we going to do? And then they kept changing the price. I had a fixed price. And I said to the guy, well, he discovered something. Well, the beams are running this way. And I know it was said 40,000, that's 45,000, right? And about the third time he did this to me, I said, can we shift over to a time and materials contract? This fixed price thing isn't really working for me. He said, well, if you don't mind carrying the extra risk. I go, what extra risk? You're just changing the bid every time you find a new piece of information. There's no risk to me. It's the same. He says, most people don't spot that, but yes. So since you spotted that, if you don't mind carrying the extra risk, and I'm going, extra risk, I'll do cost of materials. So it was great because then they were just there. We just had them do whatever. So we actually had them build secret passageways for my kids in the house, you know, and fix the fence down over here and shore up the piece of dirt over there, whatever we needed, right? So there's an example from house. Now the example from book publishing, it normally takes 4 or 5 months from the time you finished your book until it comes out in paper. And when I came up with my first Agile book, we were trying to hit the OOPSLA conference, and we had like 2 months or something. They said, you can't do it. I said, give me a copy editor in Salt Lake, give me an illustrator in Salt Lake, give me an indexer and a layout person in Salt Lake. We're going to do this like here. And I did incremental iterative, and I had like all chapters flying around, and I had a spreadsheet, and we did 3 iterations, and I had limited iterations, and blah, blah, blah. And the copy editor went mad because she's used to having just all paper here and a big pot of tea. You turn a piece of paper, you make marks on the paper, you drink your tea, and you send off the packet, and you get the next book. And I was like, she had no idea where any chapter was. It was like all over everywhere. We got the whole thing done in 5 weeks. 4 or 5 months to 5 weeks. And the cost was higher, which is also inside the book. There's a theory about why the cost will be higher when you do this, and the graph is inside the book. And she said, I had to turn in a higher bill. It's 15% more expensive. And I told them it's because the author kept changing his mind. And we had all these meetings. Every week we had to have a meeting in a coffee shop, like what we were doing. And I said, well, yeah, we have the meeting because, She said, I know, I'm editing that chapter. Is the kids. So my kids would come home and they would say, what do you have for homework? Oh, our current events assignment is due tomorrow. Well, what's your current event? We have to write up 13 current events things over the last month. Could you have told me that maybe a month ago? That would have been a really useful thing to do. So I got tired of this. So I said, okay, we're going to apply the principles of the Agile project management sort of stuff. And you will recognize that we built a walking skeleton, right? We did incremental delivery with walking skeleton, those of you know what that is. So I said, when I first detect you have a long-term assignment, which is not the day that they get it, it's the day that I detect that they have it, right? You guys all know that. The day I detect that you have a long-term assignment, you're going to make me up a schedule of like how many days we have left and what you're going to have. So you got 13, let's say we've got 3 weeks, so we've got 13 current events reports. On every day, how many are you going to have done? Right? You just make up a number, you just do it. That's a burn-up chart or a burn-down chart for any of you guys. So they pick a number like that. And I said, on day number 1, tonight, day 0, you're going to make the report. It's called the walking skeleton. And you're going to get a plastic folder, and you're going to print up, go to the computer, and you type up. Because, you always have to put the teacher's name above your name or below your name, right? And your room number, and it's either on the left side or the right. And you never know. That's the night before it's due. And you're trying to figure out what are the rules on this thing, because they'll get yelled at. If it's on the left, it's supposed to be on the right. The name's in the wrong order. So they make the title sheet. And I said, make a table of contents, so 1 to 13. And they're all blank because you don't have any. And get 13 plastic sheets, and you put 13 pieces of paper in all of them. You now have an accurate deliverable that you could give your teacher. It's got nothing in it except the title page and a fake table of contents, but it's there. And then when you go and do your work, you'll get the research, you'll do the thing, you'll stick the article in, you'll print out the thing, and you stick it in the sheet. And here's the rework that comes with incremental iterative development. You have to update the table of contents to have the thing you've got. Then on any day, I look at the calendar, so it says you've got 5, give me your sheet. It's got 2, you got 3 more to do tonight, right? And so you stage it up. That's burn up chart, burn down, walking skeleton, incremental stage, right? All the stuff on kids' homework. So this stuff applies to like pretty much anything. And there were no CTOs involved. All right, that's at the very end. You guys have been super polite. Have a nice night. Thank you, and enjoy the beer.